On the broadcast tonight, opening up, President Park Geun-hye's #1 goal in the new year seems to be getting rid of her reputation as a leader who lacks good communication skills. Various attempts are being made by the president, including her first ever news conference. Action when necessary. Korea's central bank will carry out appropriate measures to stabilize local financial markets if and when deemed necessary, says the Bank of Korea governor in a New Year's address to financial institutions in Seoul. Empty gesture, that's what South Korea is calling North Korean leader Kim Jong-un's conciliatory New Year's address, urging Pyongyang to scrap its nuclear programs to show its commitment to better relations. This is Early Edition at 6. It is 4 a.m. in Washington, 2:30 p.m. in New Delhi, and 6 on the first Friday of 2014 here in Seoul. Welcome to Early Edition at 6. I'm Moon Gon-young.
That's one of many firsts to come. And this is Daniel Che. Thank you for joining us. We begin at the nation's top office.
President Park Geun-hye rang in the new year by hosting a New Year's greeting ceremony this Friday afternoon, where she gave a keynote address on her policy direction for 2014.
She will also hold her first news conference since taking office next Monday. Our Yoo Li-an starts us off.
Alongside some 200 key government officials that represent ministries and state administrations, President Park Geun-hye held a New Year's greeting ceremony on Friday afternoon at the presidential office of Cheong Wa Dae. She used the opportunity to urge the government to quickly pull up the national income level to $40,000 and once again called for a peaceful reunification of the Korean peninsula. Among those in attendance was Democratic Party leader Kim Han-gil, making it the first time in 5 months that the opposition party has taken part in a bipartisan meeting. He proposed the creation of a special committee that consists of representatives from the rival parties and the presidential office to resolve conflicts that stem from the growing economic gap between the classes. Kim also emphasized that the president should seek national unity through active communication and that she should appoint a special prosecutor to uncover the truth behind last year's election fraud scandal. Now on Monday, President Park will hold her very first New Year's press conference at Cheong Wa Dae, where she's expected to lay out her plans for the new year. While the past year has been about handling state affairs, this year she is expected to ensure the new policies actually bring about fruitful results so that people can feel their effects. Following her speech, she will hold her very first public Q&A session with reporters, a move that's being interpreted as an effort to tame criticisms from the opposition party that she hasn't communicated effectively with the people. Yoo Li-an, Arirang News.
And Arirang will bring you a live special coverage of President Park Geun-hye's New Year's press conference at 10 a.m. on Monday, Korea time. Now, we're opening up the new year, and with it, we're seeing efforts by the leaderships of both Koreas to improve their strained relations. The softer and friendlier tone between the two sides has raised hopes for dialogue, but South Korean ministers and North Korea experts have warned against feeling too optimistic just yet. Arirang News' Han Daeun has this report.
North Korea's agency in charge of inter-Korean relations has pledged to open up a new phase towards the reunification of the two Koreas in 2014. In an interview posted on the North's propaganda website 우리 민족끼리 on Thursday, officials from the Committee for the Peaceful Reunification of the Fatherland called for pragmatic efforts to improve inter-Korean ties. This comes a day after North Korean leader Kim Jong-un sent a conciliatory message to the South through his New Year's address. On the same day, President Park Geun-hye said she will make greater efforts in 2014 to realize peace on the Korean peninsula during a phone conversation with UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon. Against this backdrop, hopes are rising the two Koreas could relaunch stalled talks soon. Some say Pyongyang will likely propose talks on family reunions for those separated since the Korean War sometime around Lunar New Year at the end of January. But many experts are warning against being too optimistic. They say Pyongyang's conciliatory message is likely part of a carefully calculated move to get leeway for further provocations if needed, as well as to calm any internal instability. Seoul's unification ministry is also refusing to read too much into the messages. In a statement released Friday, the ministry said it remained skeptical as Pyongyang forged ahead with a nuclear test and other provocations in 2013 after pledging to take a path of reconciliation in its New Year's address last year.
We can help but have doubts about the sincerity of North Korea's New Year's address.
The ministry reiterated it was North Korea that worsened inter-Korean ties. The statement also urged Pyongyang to first take sincere steps, including towards denuclearization, before discussing improvement of ties between the two Koreas. Ministry spokesman Kim Han-gil told reporters there has been mixed analysis on the recent cordial message from Pyongyang, but the ministry believes North Korea has not shown it has changed its previous stance. South Korean government officials say, however, that they have not completely ruled out the possibility of inter-Korean dialogue sometime in the near future. 한다은, Arirang News.
Washington's main focus in terms of its North Korea policy in the new year remains unchanged: Pyongyang's denuclearization. That's according to U.S. State Department Deputy Spokesperson Mary Harf during a regular press briefing on Thursday local time. Now, Harf said the U.S. will continue to make decisions based upon Pyongyang's actions, not its words. And although she declined to analyze North Korean leader Kim Jong-un's New Year's message, the deputy spokesperson did say Washington did not see any mention of North Korea's commitment to denuclearization in that speech. She added the U.S. is in consultation with China on that issue. Now, as for recent visits by Japanese high-profile politicians, including the Prime Minister, to the controversial Yasukuni Shrine, Harf said Washington has been urging Japan to resolve historical issues with its neighbors in an amicable manner. For his first official overseas trip of the new year, Seoul's Foreign Minister Yoon Byung-se will be traveling to the United States. And dominating his bilateral talks with U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry will be Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe's recent visit to a controversial war shrine and the situation in North Korea following the execution of Chang Song-taek. Park Ji-won reports.
Korean Foreign Minister Yoon Byung-se will visit the U.S. next week to hold talks with key figures of the Obama administration, including his U.S. counterpart John Kerry. According to the Foreign Ministry on Friday, Yoon will depart for the U.S. on Sunday and hold talks with U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry on Tuesday. The two will hold a joint press conference following the talks.
It is a very significant event for the foreign minister to visit the U.S., one of the most important diplomatic partners, especially at the beginning of this new year.
The talks will center on issues surrounding the Korean peninsula and Northeast Asian affairs, particularly North Korea's moves following the execution of North Korean leader Kim Jong-un's uncle, Chang Song-taek. Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe's recent visit to a controversial war shrine that honors Class A war criminals is also expected to be discussed. In the talks, Yoon is likely to deliver Korea's clear opposition to Abe's visit and lay out Korea's vision for resolving historical disputes in Northeast Asia. Other issues on the table will include defense cost-sharing negotiations and Washington's transfer of wartime military control to Seoul. The bilateral talks between Yoon and Kerry come about 3 months after their last meeting at the end of September during the UN General Assembly in New York. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
The Korean government plans to front-load 65% of its annual budget in the first half of the year to ensure the economic recovery stays firmly on track over the next few months. The decision was approved Friday during a cabinet meeting led by Prime Minister Kim Jong-un. Under the plan, the government will set aside 40% of its fiscal spending for this year in the first quarter and 25% in the April to June period. Officials say funds will be funneled into projects which are easy to carry out and benefit regular people, like measures to boost jobs. The Bank of Korea Governor Kim Jong-soo said Friday that the central bank will take appropriate measures to stabilize local financial markets if and when it's necessary. In a New Year's speech to financial institutions, Kim said the central bank will strengthen its monitoring for offshore capital flows. His remarks came a day after the Korean won gained the most against the U.S. dollar and the Japanese yen in more than 5 years, raising concerns that the price competitiveness of local exporters might erode. Korean Finance Minister Hyun Oh-seok also added that the government is closely keeping an eye on the nation's currency market. Concerns about the state of the Chinese economy and its massive manufacturing sector in particular cast a long shadow over global markets in the first trading day of the new year. Our Shin Se-min has the story.
Stock markets around the globe started the new year on a weak note on poor economic indicators out of China, suggesting a slowdown in its economy. U.S. shares plunged on the first trading day of 2014, with the Dow Jones Industrial Average closing 0.8% lower and the S&P 500 falling nearly 0.9%. Jitters over the Chinese economy overshadowed the Eurozone's highest manufacturing sector outlook in 2.5 years. The falls were partly due to profit-taking after a record-breaking run at the end of 2013, but analysts said concerns over the world's second-largest economy set the tone. The U.S. market opened hours after Beijing released China's Purchasing Managers Index, which fell to a 4-month low in December. The number is still above the 50-point mark, which separates expansion from contraction in the manufacturing sector, but analysts said that the drop suggests the momentum of growth has peaked in China and that the economy would decelerate. Over in Europe, share prices also fell on the first trading day of 2014. In London, the FTSE fell 0.5% and Germany DAX fell 1.6%. And in Korea, the Kospi closed 2% lower on Thursday and dropped 1% more on Friday to close the week at 1,946 points, a 4-month low. Concerns over the exchange rate due to the weakening of the Japanese yen and the decline in Samsung Electronics' fourth-quarter earnings led the 2-day decline. However, analysts are optimistic that the market will bounce back following economic recoveries in the American and European markets. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
Now, the fear of an unprecedented provisional budget is now behind us as the National Assembly passed the 2014 budget bill and other key bills in the early hours of New Year's Day.
Today, we take a look at what political issues and events are in store for us this brand new year. We are now joined by our Kim Han-gil. Hello there, Yeon-ji.
Hello, Daniel. Kan-young. The rival parties are now eyeing the local elections in June, in which Koreans will elect roughly 3,900 heads of local governments and superintendents nationwide. As the first regional election since President Park Geun-hye took office, the June elections will serve as a litmus test of the Park administration. The stakes are particularly high for the ruling Saenuri Party in an environment where religious and civic groups have called for President Park to step down, saying the presidential election of 2012 that brought her into office was a fraud. The spy agency stands accused of trying to influence the outcome of the election in favor of now President Park Geun-hye by posting biased messages online. Here, take a look. The ruling Saenuri Party plans to harness all party resources and energy for the elections in a bid to consolidate the Park Geun-hye administration.
It's time for us to pull up our collars and approach the public with a humble heart and integrity. We must make 2014 a year that guarantees a bright future for the party.
The main opposition Democratic Party, which has suffered a string of election defeats, including the 2012 presidential election, plans to appeal to voters by targeting the Park administration, which they say has worsened the people's livelihoods and the nation's democracy.
In addition to protecting democracy and the people's livelihoods, we need an election victory this brand new year.
The Democratic Party faces an uphill battle, as it has not only the ruling party to worry about, but also a new party led by independent lawmaker An. An's new third party is fast gaining popularity in the southwestern Honam region, which has long been the Democratic Party's traditional power base.
The old system and way of thinking that wants to keep its vested rights by settling for regionalism and refusing to reform itself while talking down on the other must be eradicated starting in the Honam region.
In related news, the National Assembly's Special Committee to Reform Politics has begun discussions on how to retool the local election system. The June elections will be the first regional election to apply whatever changes this committee decides to implement, and this is why the committee is being asked to complete all legislative work by the end of January. The parliamentary committee will be occupied with two main issues. First, whether to scrap a system under which political parties field candidates for elections in the basic units of local government, provincial cities, counties, and districts of metropolitan cities. And second, how to improve the election system for school superintendents. The rival parties pledged to reform the local election system in the run-up to last year's presidential election because there have been a number of money for nomination scandals in the past. As for the superintendent elections, there is a debate about whether a direct popular vote is the best way to choose education chiefs.
Now, Yeonji, the other special parliamentary committee that's working now, the Committee to Reform the Scandal-Ridden National Intelligence Service, what are its plans for this month?
Well, Kan-young, the Special Committee to Reform the National Intelligence Service is gearing up for a second round of policy discussions, which observers say will again be fraught with difficulties. Its first round of discussions, as we all know, focused on how to ensure that the spy agency does not meddle in local politics. But now that the resulting decision has been put into law, lawmakers say they will move on to reviewing how the spy agency can better perform its original duty of collecting intelligence. The ruling Saenuri Party plans to push for allowing the spy agency to wiretap telephones and keep the agency's right to investigate crimes such as allegations of rebellion. However, the main opposition Democratic Party takes the very opposite stance, saying that they must reduce the size of the domestic unit and transfer the spy agency's investigative authority to the prosecution or police. Another hot potato has to do with the opposition's demand for launching a separate independent investigation into allegations that a number of government organizations, including the spy agency, interfered in the 2012 presidential election. An opposition coalition has submitted a bill pertaining to those demands, and it plans to continue to pressure the ruling party to accept them.
You know, I don't think we're jumping the gun when we say the spy agency scandal will take center stage and will continue to do so at the National Assembly.
That is right, Daniel. We have many reasons to think that. The ruling party remains firm that it will not agree to the opening of a separate independent investigation into the illegal electioneering allegations, pointing out that the former spy agency chief is currently on trial. Take a listen.
The opposition bloc is simply trying to carry this issue through and use it for its advantage in the June local elections. The 2012 presidential election was a landslide victory for us. However, the Democratic Party continues to drag us down and deny the 2012 election results. And because of that, we think the local elections in June will be a close race.
The illegal electioneering scandal involving a number of state institutions, including the spy agency, has dealt a major blow to the democratic principles of our nation. But the ruling party has not yet responded to the issue. The ruling party has been implicated in some of the cases, but the ruling party has not admitted to any of its wrongdoings. Through four-person negotiations in early December, the leaders of the rival parties agreed to amendments to prevent the spy agency from interfering in politics again before the end of 2013. But the ruling party was insincere throughout the process, which demonstrates that it doesn't regret a thing.
Yeonji, while this spy agency scandal continues to take center stage, It's also one of the very reasons why the general public gave lawmakers a poor scorecard in 2013.
That is right, Kanyang. A recent survey done by Seoul-based Han-gil Research shows a whopping 81% of the people think National Assembly did poorly in 2013. As for the reasons, lawmakers playing only to party interests and corruption issues topped the list. But 20% of the people responded that the parliament was caught up in the undercurrents of the 2012 presidential election. Some say the stinging rebuke of the National Assembly in the Court of Public Opinion suggests that it is time to seriously consider amending the Constitution. 75% of the people surveyed supported amending the Constitution, many of them saying the inefficient parliamentary audit system that comes once every year should be changed for the better, and that the privileges of lawmakers must be reduced.
Well, it's clear that the National Assembly has its work cut out for it in 2014. Thank you for that report. That was our Kim Han-gil, our National Assembly correspondent, reporting live on the uphill battle they face.
Digging deeper, getting to the bottom of stories that impact your life. Talking with you on air and online. Connecting you with heroes and experts to help you understand the world's most pressing issues. News and current affairs at its best with Moon Gun-young and Daniel Che on Early Edition at 6.
Now shifting gears to the economy, Korean import prices rose by 2%. Protesters are growing more vocal about the case of a teenage girl in India who was gang raped on 2 separate occasions last year. The girl died on the last day of 2013, almost 1 year after a similarly gruesome case in Delhi highlighted India's sexual violence problem. Our Kwon-soo has this report.
The new year in India began with national outrage over the death of a 16-year-old girl who was gang raped twice in October last year and reportedly lit herself on fire in December. The girl, who cannot be named for legal reasons, was gang raped on October 25th in Kolkata and again on the next day by the same group of men after filing a complaint with the police. On December 23rd, the teenager was hospitalized with around half of her body burned, and the media reported she had set herself on fire. While she was being treated, her doctors discovered she was pregnant. A few days later, however, she was said to have told police just before dying that 2 men set her on fire when she was home alone. Her family emphasizes that she did not commit suicide and that police tried to cremate the body as fast as possible in an apparent attempt to get rid of evidence. Indian activists are demonstrating against the government's handling of the situation.
I would like to stress that the government is responsible for the girl who would have been present amongst us today if the West Bengal administration had properly carried out the law. We do not seek anything else. But where is the law? A girl was gang raped twice and still you're unable to punish the accused. Why?
The victim's father says he will demand the death penalty for the 2 men accused of his daughter's murder. The issue of violence against women in India grabbed national and international attention just over a year ago after a 23-year-old woman was brutally raped on a bus in New Delhi in December of 2012. 4 of the 5 rapists in that case are now facing the death penalty. Since that incident, the government has introduced new laws against sexual violence, but the latest case has renewed criticism against the government for failing to protect women. Kwon-soo, Arirang News.
Now switching to an entirely different topic, customers are swarming the U.S. state of Colorado, which opened up for business as the first state to sell marijuana for recreational purposes. But if you're a Korean national, you may want to stay away. In Korea, it is illegal to smoke marijuana, and users can face up to 30 years behind bars for the offense, even if it is legal to use the drug in the place in which it was used. The Korean Association Against Drug Abuse says Korean marijuana smokers can be charged with criminal offenses upon returning to their home country. Some studies have shown that marijuana is addictive and can pose health risks when used repeatedly over a long period of time.
And time now to get a check on the weather conditions. For that, let's go over to our Kim Bo-kyung at the Weather Center. Now, Bo-kyung, it was a rather dark and gloomy day here in the nation's capital.
That's right, Kan-young, it was. And the high levels of fine dust we had this morning didn't help, although it cleared up by the afternoon.
Well, but I hear more is on the way, Bo-kyung.
That's right, Danielle. We're forecast to get more fine dust from China later tonight through tomorrow morning, so children and the elderly should take caution. Well, continued from yesterday, dry weather advisories are still in effect in some regions. A dry weather alert in Gangwon-do province and a dry weather warning elsewhere in the southeastern coastal regions. Other than that, the mountains in Gangwon may see heavy snowfall tomorrow evening, which will clear away the fine dust. Looking ahead at tomorrow's readings, Seoul starts off the day at -3 degrees with a high of 5, while Daegu and Gwangju hit 8. As for other regions, Jeju tops out at 9 degrees, meanwhile Dokdo and Mount Kumgang peak at 3 and -4 degrees respectively. Well, hope you have a wonderful Friday night, and back to you guys.
Thank you for that, Bo-kyung. That's all from us for this hour. Thank you for watching. This has been Daniel Che.
And I'm Moon Kan-young. Thank you as always for being here with us. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you right back here same time on Monday evening. Good night.